an original werewolf romance story by Weaver Studios. Introduction. My hand trembled as I reached for the rejection letter bearing the royal seal. But I didn't need to open it. I already knew what it said. The same thing every letter had said for the past 5 years. Unfit for pack service. Unable to shift. Request denied. I crumpled it without reading and threw it into the corner with the others. The cellar was cold tonight, but I'd learned to ignore the chill. Just like I'd learned to ignore the hunger, the darkness, the endless sound of footsteps overhead, life continuing without me, as if I didn't exist. I was 22 years old, and I'd spent the last 15 years in this hole. The mirror propped against the stone wall reflected what everyone else saw when they looked at me, if they bothered to look at all. Silver streaks ran through my dark hair like threads of moonlight, marks that had appeared the day my wolf should have emerged. My eyes were pale gray, almost colorless in certain light. I was too thin, too strange, too other to belong anywhere. I pressed my fingers against the glass, studying the face of the girl everyone called cursed. "They're wrong about you," I whispered to my reflection. "They have to be." But after 15 years of hearing the same words, it was getting harder to believe my own lies. A sound made me freeze, the cellar door creaking open. I barely had time to scramble back before Morgana descended, her face twisted with the particular cruelty she reserved just for me. My stepmother had married my father when I was 5. He'd died 2 years later, and she'd made it her life's mission to make me pay for his loss. "Still awake?" She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin hard enough to bruise. "I told you to finish mending those dresses hours ago." I gestured to the pile of completed work in the corner. 20 elaborate gowns, all sewn and pressed. I'd worked through the night to finish them. She barely glanced at them. "Sloppy! You'll redo them all." Her eyes gleamed with malice. "And perhaps this will teach you to work faster." She poured my dinner, a bowl of thin soup and stale bread, directly onto the floor. I watched the soup seep into the dirt, my stomach cramping with hunger. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. "Clean that up before it draws rats." Morgana turned toward the stairs, then paused. "Oh, and tomorrow night is the choosing ceremony. Obviously you won't be attending. The Alpha King doesn't need to see our family's shame." She smiled. "I've arranged for extra locks on the door, just to be sure you don't get any foolish ideas." She left, and I heard multiple locks clicking into place. I stared at the spilled soup for a long moment. Then I knelt and used a rag to clean it up. Just like she'd ordered. Just like I always did. Because what choice did I have? Chapter 1. The morning of the choosing ceremony, I woke to voices overhead. Excited chatter as the pack's eligible females prepared for their chance to be chosen as the Alpha King's mate. I listened to them laughing, sharing cosmetics, helping each other with their hair. No one even remembered I was down here. I'd learned about the choosing ceremony from the scraps of conversation that filtered through the floorboards. Alpha King Edmund Duskbane, who'd ruled for over 3 centuries, was finally taking a mate. Every pack in the realm had sent their finest females. Tonight, he would choose, and some lucky woman would become the most powerful Luna in our world. It should have meant nothing to me. But lying in the darkness, listening to those girls prepare for a future I'd never have, something inside me cracked. I was so tired of being nothing, of accepting my fate, of believing I deserved this. What if they were wrong? What if I wasn't cursed, just different? The thought was dangerous. Hope was the cruelest thing you could give someone in my position. But once it took root, I couldn't shake it. I spent the day like I always did, mending clothes, cleaning, trying to ignore my hunger. As evening approached, the sounds overhead intensified. Music drifted down. Laughter. The rustle of fine fabrics. Then, footsteps on the cellar stairs. I expected Morgana, coming to gloat. Instead, Quillen appeared in the doorway, his kind face worried. Quillen was an Omega, the lowest rank in our pack hierarchy. We'd bonded over our shared outsider status when we were children. He was the only person who'd ever shown me kindness. Evangeline. He glanced behind him nervously. I don't have much time. Morgana's at the ceremony hall. What are you doing here? He pulled something from his bag. A dress. Simple gray cotton, but clean and whole. You're coming to the ceremony. Quillen, no. I backed away. If Morgana finds out, she won't. Everyone's too focused on this Alpha King. He set the dress down and produced a set of lockpicks. You deserve to see this, Evangeline. You deserve one night where you're not locked in this cellar. Even if I go, nothing will change. He won't choose me. Why would he? Maybe he won't. Quillen met my eyes. But maybe he will. And you'll never know if you stay down here. I stared at the dress, at the lockpicks, at the open doorway leading to a world that had rejected me over and over. Every rational part of me said to refuse, to accept my place, to not invite more pain. But that small, dangerous spark of hope was growing. If I do this, I said slowly, and it goes wrong, Morgana will make it worse. You know she will. Then we'll deal with it together. Quillen's smile was gentle. Come on, Evangeline. Take the risk. For once, choose yourself. Choose myself. I'd never done that before. Never been allowed to. My hands shook as I reached for the dress. Okay, I'll go. Quillen's grin was bright enough to light the cellar. He turned away while I changed, and I caught my reflection in the small mirror. The dress was too big. I'd lost weight over the years, but it was clean, whole, better than anything I'd worn in a decade. I looked almost normal. How do we get past the locks? I asked. Quillen held up the picks with a conspiratorial wink. I've been practicing. It took him 10 minutes to work through all 5 locks. Every click made my heart race faster. We were really doing this. I was really making this choice. When the last lock opened, I stood at the threshold of my prison and took a deep breath of air that didn't smell like mold and stone. Ready? Quillen asked. No, I wasn't ready. I was terrified. But I nodded anyway. We moved through the servant passages, the sound of music and voices growing louder. Quillen had mapped out a route that avoided the main corridors. When we reached a small door leading into the ceremony hall, he squeezed my hand. Stay in the shadows. If anyone asks, you're a servant. And Evangeline? He smiled. Whatever happens tonight, I'm proud of you for coming. The ceremony hall stole my breath. I'd never seen anything so beautiful. Hundreds of candles cast dancing light across walls hung with tapestries. The ceiling soared overhead, painted with constellations. And the wolves, gods, there were so many of them. Elegant females in gowns that cost more than I'd see in a lifetime, their hair styled elaborately, their wolves close to the surface so their eyes gleamed with power. I felt like a shadow among stars. I found a spot behind a pillar, partially hidden by a decorative banner. From here I could see without being seen, the story of my life. The pack's elite stood near the front. I spotted Morgana, her face arranged in a false smile as she chatted with other matrons. My half-sisters, Karen and Savannah, preened in their finest gowns. They were beautiful, powerful, everything I wasn't. The music swelled, and a hush fell over the crowd. The massive doors at the far end opened. Alpha King Edmund Duskbane entered, and the air itself seemed to change. I'd heard stories about him my entire life. How he'd united the warring packs 300 years ago. How his mate had died in a tragedy that nearly destroyed him. How he'd ruled alone ever since. The stories painted him as ruthless, powerful, and utterly terrifying. They hadn't prepared me for the reality of him. He was tall, over 6.5 feet, with the kind of presence that made everyone else fade into the background. His hair was midnight black, falling past his shoulders, and his face was all sharp angles and masculine beauty that looked carved rather than born. He wore formal black clothing that emphasized rather than concealed his warrior's build. But it was his eyes that held me frozen. Gold. Pure molten gold, ancient and knowing, carrying the weight of centuries. He surveyed the assembled females with an expression that revealed nothing. I saw hope die on face after face as his gaze passed over them without pause. Whatever he was looking for, he wasn't finding it. Then he stopped walking. His nostrils flared. He inhaled deeply, his head turning slowly, scanning the crowd with sudden intensity. Every wolf in the hall held their breath. His eyes swept past the elaborate gowns, past my stepmother's carefully positioned daughters, past the pack's beta and elders, and locked directly on me. Time stopped. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. Those golden eyes pinned me in place like a butterfly to a board. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, followed by what looked like recognition. But that was impossible. We'd never met. He started walking, directly toward me. The crowd murmured in confusion. Females who'd been certain of their selection watched with growing shock as the Alpha King bypassed them all. Morgana's face went from smug satisfaction to horrified disbelief. I pressed myself back against the pillar, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. This couldn't be happening. Any moment now he'd realize his mistake and turn to someone else. But he didn't stop. He moved with predatory grace until he stood directly before me. So close I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Up close, he was even more overwhelming. Power, presence, and something wild barely contained beneath civilized clothing. He leaned in, his nose nearly touching my neck, and inhaled. The sound he made was almost a growl, low and resonant. It vibrated through my chest, making something inside me flutter to life. You. His voice was rough silk, intimate despite the crowd. What's your name? My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I'd spent 15 years being invisible. Being noticed felt like standing under a spotlight that might burn me alive. His hand came up slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his fingers brushed my cheek with surprising gentleness. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. Just tell me your name. Evangeline, I managed to whisper. Evangeline Moonwhisper. Evangeline. He said it like he was tasting the syllables. Why are you hiding back here? Before I could answer, Morgana's voice cut through the moment like a blade. Your Majesty, please forgive the interruption. She pushed through the crowd, her face a mask of false concern. That creature is no one important, just a servant who shouldn't even be here. She's... I asked her, not you. Edmund didn't look away from me. Evangeline, why are you hiding? The truth lodged in my throat. How did I explain 15 years of abuse and rejection to this powerful stranger? How did I make him understand what it meant to be nothing? Because I don't belong here, I said finally. I can't shift. I'm marked as cursed. The pack tolerates my existence, but they don't want me anywhere they have to actually see me. Something dangerous flashed in his golden eyes. You can't shift? I shook my head, shame burning through me. How old are you? 22. And your wolf never emerged? His hand moved from my cheek to cup my face, tilting it toward the light. These silver marks, when did they appear? The day I should have shifted. 7 years old. I tried to pull away, but his grip was gentle and immovable. Everyone says they're proof I'm cursed, that I'm defective. They're wrong. The absolute certainty in his voice made me look up. Evangeline, you're not cursed. You're something else entirely. Your Majesty, really, you shouldn't waste your time. Morgana tried again. Silence. He didn't raise his voice, but the command in it made every wolf in the hall flinch. The woman standing before me is not a servant. She's not cursed, and she's not invisible. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I shivered. She's my mate. The hall erupted into chaos. Gasps, shouts, protests, everyone talking at once. Morgana's face went white. My half-sisters looked like they might faint. The pack beta stepped forward, his expression apologetic but firm. Alpha King, with all due respect, the girl is broken. She cannot shift, which makes her unable to fulfill the duties of a Luna. Surely you would be better served by choosing someone with proper wolf heritage. My wolf chose her? Edmund's eyes flashed full gold, a warning. Are you questioning my wolf's judgment? The beta immediately lowered his gaze in submission. Of course not, Your Majesty. But others weren't so easily cowed. Voices rose, calling me names I'd heard my whole life. Cursed, defective, worthless. The pack's females looked at me with hatred, angry that their chance had been stolen by the cellar girl. The chanting started, low at first, then building. Banish her, banish her, banish her. Chapter 2. Each word hit me at my core. This was my worst nightmare. Not just being rejected, but being spectacularly, publicly humiliated in front of the entire realm. I wanted to run, to disappear back into my cellar where at least I knew what to expect. Then Edmund's hand found mine. Evangeline. He said my name softly, but I heard him clearly over the chaos. Look at me. I forced myself to meet his eyes. Do you want to stay here? With them? He jerked his chin toward the jeering crowd. Or do you want to come with me? Why would you want me? The question burst out. You could have anyone. Why choose the broken one? Because you're not broken. His hand tightened on mine. Because when I scented you, my wolf went wild for the first time in 200 years. Because looking at you feels like finding something I didn't know I'd been missing. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. Because I think you're the bravest person in this hall, hiding back here instead of preening for attention. Because those marks they call a curse? He brushed his fingers through my silver-streaked hair. They're beautiful. Tears burned behind my eyes. No one had ever called me beautiful. No one had ever chosen me for anything. It will hurt less if you reject me now, I whispered, before I start to hope. Then I hope you'll forgive me for what I'm about to do. He released my hand and turned to face the crowd. The alpha dominance that rolled off him dropped every wolf to their knees. This woman is under my protection. She is my chosen mate, and anyone who questions that choice answers to me personally. Am I understood? Silence fell, thick and heavy. I said, Am I understood? Murmurs of assent rippled through the hall. Even Morgana, still on her knees, managed a jerky nod. Edmund turned back to me and did something I never expected. He knelt, brought himself down to my eye level, making himself vulnerable before the entire assembly. Evangeline, Moon Whisper, I'm asking you to come with me, to give us, a chance. His eyes searched mine. I know you have no reason to trust me. I know this is overwhelming, but I'm asking you to take a risk. Choose yourself. Choose this. Choose me. Choose yourself. The same words Quillen had used. I looked past Edmund at the sea of hostile faces. Morgana's rage, my sister's jealousy, the pact that had made my life hell for 15 years. Then I looked at the hand Edmund offered, strong, steady, promising safety I'd never known. This was insane. I didn't know this man. He could be worse than Morgana for all I knew. This could be a trap, a trick, a joke at my expense. But standing there, with everyone waiting for my answer, I realized something. I was already in hell. At least if I left, it would be different hell. And maybe, just maybe, it would be better. I placed my hand in his. Okay, I'll come with you. His smile transformed his face, making him look younger and somehow more devastating. He stood, pulling me up with him, and removed his ceremonial cloak, black silk lined with silver. He draped it around my shoulders, and it swallowed my thin frame, smelling of pine and thunderstorms and something wild. The gesture was possessive, claiming, marking me as his before everyone. Can you walk, or should I carry you? He asked softly. I can walk. I needed to do this myself, needed to leave under my own power, not carried away like something helpless. He kept my hand in his as we moved toward the doors. The crowd parted before us, wolves lowering their eyes in submission to their king. I kept my head up, even though I wanted to collapse. As we passed Quillen, I caught his eye. He was grinning like a fool, tears streaming down his face. He mouthed, I'm proud of you. We were almost to the doors when Morgana found her courage. You'll regret this, she shrieked. She's cursed. She'll bring nothing but misfortune. Edmund paused, turning slowly. When he spoke, his voice promised death. If anything happens to Evangeline, if she suffers so much as a paper cut because of your malice, I will return, and you will learn exactly why other alphas fear me. He let the threat hang in the air. Pray we never meet again. Then we were outside, the cool night air hitting my face. A massive black carriage waited, pulled by horses that were too perfect, too still to be entirely natural. Edmund handed me inside first, then followed. The door closed, cocooning us in lamplight and privacy. As the carriage began to move, taking me away from the only life I'd ever known, I started to shake. It's the shock, Edmund said gently, perfectly normal. I don't understand. The words tumbled out. Why me? There were dozens of beautiful, powerful females there. Why choose me? He was quiet for a moment, studying me in the dim light. Do you know what a true mate is, Evangeline? Stories, legends, two souls that recognize each other. It's real. Rare, but real. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've lived for 3 centuries. I've attended countless choosing ceremonies, met thousands of females. Never once has my wolf stirred. Tonight, the moment I entered that hall, I scented you. His eyes met mine. My wolf went completely wild. It recognized you instantly, Evangeline. You're my true mate. That's not possible. I'm not even a proper wolf. No, he agreed. You're something else, something rare. And I think... He paused. I think you're exactly what I've been waiting 300 years to find. The carriage rolled through the night, and I sat wrapped in his cloak, trying to process what had just happened. My entire life had changed in the space of an hour. I'd made a choice, taken a risk, and now I was sitting across from the most powerful alpha in the realm, while he looked at me like I mattered, like I was worth something. What happens now? I asked quietly. Now we learn about each other. No pressure, no expectations, just getting to know who we are. He smiled. And tomorrow we'll start figuring out what you are. Because Evangeline, those marks aren't a curse. They're a sign of something extraordinary. I wanted to believe him. Gods, I wanted to believe him so badly. But 15 years of abuse had taught me that hope was dangerous. And as the carriage carried us through the darkness toward my uncertain future, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd jumped from one prison into another. This one just had prettier bars. Chapter 3. Edmund's castle materialized from the darkness like something from a dream, or a nightmare, depending on your perspective. Black stone towers reached toward the sky, silver spires catching moonlight. It was massive, intimidating, and utterly magnificent. Nothing like my cellar. The gates opened before us as if the castle itself recognized its master. As the carriage rolled to a stop, I clutched Edmund's cloak tighter around myself, suddenly very aware that I was wearing a too large dress and looked like exactly what I was. A cellar rat pretending to belong in a palace. "Second thoughts?" Edmund asked. 100th thoughts. I forced myself to meet his eyes. "This is insane. You know that, right? You don't know anything about me except that I can't shift and your wolf likes my scent." "True." He tilted his head, studying me. "So tell me something about yourself. Something real." "Like what?" "Anything. Your favorite color. What makes you laugh. What you dream about." Oh, almost said I didn't know. I'd spent so long just surviving that I'd never thought about preferences or dreams. But that wasn't quite true. "I used to read," I said slowly. "When I was little, before my father died. He had books, histories, legends, stories. I'd lose myself in them for hours." I looked down at my hands. After he died, Morgana burned them all. Said I didn't deserve to waste time on foolishness. "What was your favorite story?" The question caught me off guard. No one had ever asked me about my preferences before. "The Swan Lake legend. About the princess cursed to be a swan, who could only become human under moonlight." I felt my cheeks heat. Stupid, I know. A girl who can't shift identifying with transformation stories. "Not stupid." His voice was soft. "Fitting. The ugly duckling who becomes a swan." I looked up sharply, expecting mockery. But his expression was sincere. "Come on," he said, opening the carriage door. "Let me show you your new home." The entrance. Hall was overwhelming. Polished marble, soaring ceilings, tapestries depicting centuries of wolf history. Servants lined the walls, all of them dropping into bows and curtsies as Edmund entered, all of them staring at me. I wanted to disappear into the floor. A woman stood at the center of the hall, and even among all this grandeur, she commanded attention. Tall and elegant, with pale blonde hair swept into an intricate style, she wore a midnight blue gown that probably cost more than my village's annual income. Her ice blue eyes swept over me with obvious assessment, and found me lacking. "Your Majesty." Her voice was cultured, cool. "We weren't expecting you to return with a guest." "Lysandy." Edmund's tone held a warning. "This is Evangeline, my mate." I watched something flicker across Lysandy's perfect face. Too quick to identify, but it looked like rage before she smoothed it away. "Your mate. How unexpected." She glided closer, circling me slowly. I felt like prey being assessed by a predator. "Forgive my surprise. It's just that you've rejected every female presented to you for decades, and now you return with—" She paused delicately. "Someone so unusual." The insult was wrapped in politeness, but it hit just as hard. "Lysandy serves as my chief advisor," Edmund said, stepping between us. She's brilliant with strategy and politics, but she's also learning that my mate deserves respect. His eyes went cold. Aren't you Lysandre? Of course, Your Majesty. Lysandre dipped into a curtsy that somehow conveyed contempt. I meant no disrespect. I'm simply concerned for your welfare. A Luna requires certain qualities: strength, political acumen, the ability to shift and defend the pack. Does your mate possess these qualities? My mate possesses qualities far more valuable. Edmund's hand found mine, warm and grounding. And her abilities will reveal themselves in time. Until then, you'll address her with the respect due to your future. Luna. Lysandre's smile was razor-sharp. As you command, Your Majesty? But as she swept past me, I heard her whisper, low enough that maybe Edmund didn't catch it. Enjoy it while it lasts, little broken thing. He'll tire of you soon enough. Edmund led me through corridors that all looked the same, elegant, expensive, and utterly foreign. I tried to memorize the path, but gave up after the 5th identical hallway. Lysandre hates me, I said quietly. Lysandre has spent years positioning herself to become Luna. She sees you as competition. He glanced at me. I should have found a better advisor decades ago, but she's exceptional at her job. Her personal feelings don't change that. She's beautiful. She's attractive, he corrected. There's a difference. Is there? He stopped walking, turning me to face him. The corridor was empty, silent except for distant sounds of servants preparing chambers. Beauty is about how someone makes you feel, Evangeline. Lysandre is aesthetically pleasing, but she's cold, calculating, and manipulative. You? His hand cupped my face, tilting it toward the lamplight. You're beautiful in a way that makes my wolf pace, in a way that makes me forget I've lived 300 years and seen everything, in a way that made me choose you over every other female in that hall, without a moment's hesitation. I wanted to believe him. But 15 years of being called ugly, cursed, worthless didn't disappear because one man said pretty words. He must have seen the doubt in my eyes because he sighed softly. You don't believe me yet? That's okay. I'll prove it. Every day I'll show you what I see when I look at you. We reached a set of ornate double doors carved with wolves running beneath a full moon. Edmund pushed them open, revealing a suite of rooms that made my breath catch. The furniture was elegant but comfortable. Deep reds and warm golds, nothing like the cold luxury of the rest of the castle. A massive 4-poster bed dominated one room. Through another doorway, I glimpsed a bathing chamber with a tub large enough to swim in. This is too much, I whispered. This is what you deserve. He moved to the fireplace, coaxing flames to life. My chambers are connected through that door. If you need anything at all, I'm right there. But these rooms are yours, Evangeline, your space. No one enters without your permission. The idea of having space that was truly mine, that I controlled, made my throat tight. I wandered to the windows, which overlooked gardens bathed in moonlight. Everything was silver and shadow, peaceful in a way I'd never experienced. Why are you being so kind to me? The question came out smaller than I intended. Because you're my mate. He said it like it was simple. Because you deserve kindness, because... He moved to stand behind me, his reflection joining mine in the glass. Because I've been alone for a very long time, Evangeline, and finding you feels like finally coming home. I turned to face him, and the intensity in his eyes made my breath catch. He looked at me like I was precious, like I mattered. No one had ever looked at me like that before. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. I don't know how to be someone's mate. I don't know how to live in a place like this. I don't even know how to be around people who don't hate me. Then we'll figure it out together. His hand came up slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, he brushed silver-streaked hair back from my face. No expectations, no pressure, just us, learning about each other. Chapter 4. A knock on the door interrupted the moment. Servants entered with trays of food, fresh clothing, everything I could possibly need. They worked quickly and efficiently, their eyes downcast, not meeting my gaze. When they left, Edmund gestured to the food. You should eat, then rest. Tomorrow there's someone I want you to meet, a scholar who might have answers about what you are. What I am, I repeated. Not who. What? Poor phrasing. He grimaced. I just meant, I know what you meant. I sank onto the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. And you're right. I'm not normal. I'm not a proper wolf. I'm just something wrong. No. He crossed to me, kneeling so we were at eye level, the same gesture he'd made in the ceremony hall. You're not wrong. You're different. And different isn't the same as broken, Evangeline. I wanted to argue, wanted to list all the ways I was defective, but the words wouldn't come. He stood, moving toward the connecting door to his chambers. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be overwhelming, but I'll be with you every step. Edmund? I stopped him before he could leave. Thank you for choosing me, for bringing me here, even if... I trailed off. Even if what? Even if it doesn't work out. Even if I'm not what you hope I am. I forced myself to meet his eyes. Thank you for tonight. For letting me feel like I mattered, even if it's just for a little while. Something fierce crossed his face. Evangeline, this isn't temporary. When I said you're my mate, I meant it. But I understand. His jaw clenched. I understand that trust takes time, especially when you've been hurt as badly as you have. He left, and I was alone in rooms that were bigger than my entire childhood home. I should have felt grateful. Safe. Lucky beyond belief. Instead, I felt like an imposter playing dress-up in someone else's life. I forced myself to eat, though I barely tasted the food. Then I bathed, washing away years of cellar grime until my skin was raw. The servants had left a nightgown of soft white silk, and I slipped into it feeling like a fraud. The bed was enormous and soft, and I should have fallen asleep immediately. Instead, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because nothing this good happened to girls like me without a price. Chapter 5. I was wrong about falling asleep. Exhaustion claimed me eventually, pulling me into dreams that were half memory, half nightmare. 7 years old, standing in the shifting ceremony clearing. Every child my age successfully transforming into their wolf form, some large, some small, all of them perfect. Pride on their parents' faces. My turn. I closed my eyes, reached for the wolf inside me, and found nothing. No animal spirit, no second form, just emptiness where something vital should have been. The silver streaks appearing in my hair as I stood there, still human, still broken. The whispers starting. Cursed. Defective. Wrong. My father's face, not disappointed but worried. He'd known something was wrong. He'd hidden me after that, tried to protect me. Then him dying. Morgana taking over. The cellar becoming my prison. 15 years of darkness. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to cover, and Edmund standing in the doorway connecting. Our rooms. Nightmares? He asked gently. I sat up, pulling the covers around myself. How did you know? I could feel your distress through the mate bond. It's faint, The bond won't be complete until I mark you, but it's there." He held up his hands. "I'm not trying to invade your privacy. I just wanted to make sure you were okay." The mate bond. Right. I'd forgotten about that part of this supernatural bargain. "I'm fine." I wasn't, but admitting weakness felt dangerous. "What time is it?" "Late morning. I let you sleep. You needed it." He gestured to a tray sitting on the table by the window. "Breakfast when you're ready. And Mordain is waiting in the library whenever you want to meet him." "The scholar you mentioned?" "He's been our pack historian for longer than I've been alive. If anyone has answers about your condition, it's him." Edmund moved to leave, then paused. "Evangeline?" "Last night. You thanked me for making you feel like you mattered. I need you to understand something." He turned to look at me fully. "You don't matter to me because I chose you. I chose you because you matter. Because you're valuable and worthy and everything those people told you you weren't. And eventually, I'm going to make you believe that." He left before I could respond. I spent longer than necessary getting ready, trying on 3 different dresses the servants had provided, before settling on simple gray, close to what I was used to, less likely to draw attention. My reflection showed someone cleaner, better fed, wearing clothes that fit. But the silver streaks still marked my hair. The eyes that couldn't quite settle on a color still stared back. No amount of fancy dresses could change what I was. Quillen appeared as I was finishing breakfast. Apparently Edmund had sent for him, had him brought to the castle and given a position in my personal guard. His face lit up when he saw me. "Look at you," he breathed. "Evangeline, you look like I'm playing dress-up?" I finished. "Like you belong here." He pulled me into a hug. "I'm so proud of you. You took the risk. You chose yourself." "I don't know if I made the right choice." "None of us ever know that." He pulled back, studying my face. "But I know you're here, in a place where people don't hurt you, with someone who looks at you like you hung the moon. That's better than the alternative." He was right. Whatever happened here, it had to be better than the cellar. Edmund led us through the castle to an enormous library that smelled of old paper and leather. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling. More books than I'd ever seen in my life. An elderly man stood by one of the windows, his body stooped with age, but his eyes sharp and knowing. He turned as we entered, and those eyes fixed on me with unsettling intensity. "Mordain," Edmund said, "this is Evangeline, the mate who cannot shift." Mordain shuffled closer, leaning heavily on a cane. He circled me slowly, muttering to himself. "Silver markings, gray to white eyes, power signature I can't quite—" He stopped in front of me. "Child, may I touch your hand?" I glanced at Edmund, who nodded encouragement. I extended my hand to Mordain. The moment his papery fingers touched mine, his eyes widened. "By the ancient moon," he breathed. "It's true. After 1,000 years, it's actually true." "What's true?" Edmund asked sharply. Mordain released my hand, moving to one of the bookshelves with surprising speed. He pulled down an ancient tome, its pages yellowed with age, and spread it open on a reading table. "There's a legend," he said, his finger tracing text in a language I couldn't read. "Older than the wolf packs themselves. It speaks of a being born once every 1,000 years, the Swan maiden. Neither fully human nor fully wolf, but something that bridges both worlds. She carries the light of the moon in her blood and possesses power that could reshape our entire society." I stared at the illustration he'd found. A figure with silver-marked hair and wings of pure light, standing between a wolf and a human form. "That's just a story," I said. "All stories have roots in truth. Mordain turned more pages, showing additional references. The Swan Maiden appears during times of great upheaval. She's a force of transformation, of change. The prophecy says she will either save the Wolf Kingdom or destroy it. Destroy it? My voice came out strangled. I can't even shift. How could I destroy anything? Because your power isn't wolf power. Mordain's eyes gleamed with scholarly excitement. It's something else entirely. Older. Purer. The prophecy says that to fully awaken this power, the Swan Maiden must accept her true mate's mark and survive the transformation that follows. What transformation? Edmund asked, his voice tight. The merge of swan and wolf, light and shadow. The prophecy is vague, but it suggests the transformation is intense. Dangerous, even. Some Swan Maidens never awakened because they rejected their mates. Others died in the transformation itself. The room felt too small suddenly. Too hot. I backed away from the book, shaking my head. This is insane. I'm not some prophesied savior. I'm just a girl who can't shift. You're so much more than that, Edmund said, reaching for me. I jerked away from his touch. Am I? Or am I just convenient? A prophecy to justify choosing the broken girl? Hurt flashed across his face. Evangeline, I chose you because my wolf recognized its mate. The prophecy is just an explanation for what you are, not why I want you. But you want me because of what I am. The words tasted bitter. Because I'm special, powerful, something useful. I want you because you're you. You don't even know me. The shout burst out of me, surprising everyone, including myself. None of you know me. You just see this. I gestured at the book, at the prophecy. Some legendary creature. But I'm not that. I'm just Evangeline, the cursed girl, the worthless one. And I don't know how to be anything else. I ran. Didn't think. Just moved, fleeing the library and the prophecy and the pressure of being something I couldn't possibly be. I didn't know where I was going. The castle was a maze. But I needed space. Needed air. Needed to not be looked at like I was supposed to save or destroy the world. I ended up in a garden, gasping for breath. My vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Footsteps approached, lighter than Edmund's, familiar. That could have gone better, Quillen said mildly, settling onto the bench beside me. I can't do this. My voice broke. They want me to be this Swan Maiden thing, this powerful creature who can reshape the realm. But I don't even know how to exist without someone telling me I'm worthless. How am I supposed to be that? I gestured vaguely at the castle. Maybe you start by being exactly who you are. Quillen bumped my shoulder gently. Evangeline, for years you've been told you're nothing. Broken, cursed. And now someone's telling you you're powerful and special and you're doing the same thing, rejecting who you are because it doesn't match what you think you should be. That's different. Is it? He caught my hand. You spent 15 years believing you were worthless. One day of being told you matter, and you're running away from it. Maybe the real bravery isn't in accepting that you're cursed. Maybe it's in accepting that you're not. I wanted to argue, wanted to explain all the ways this was different. But Quillen had always been able to see through my defenses. I'm scared, I admitted quietly. What if I fail? What if I'm not what the prophecy says? What if Edmund realizes he made a mistake? Then you'll deal with it. Together. Quillen squeezed my hand. But you can't live your life running from possibilities just because they might hurt. That's not living, Evangeline. That's just a different kind of prison. He was right. I'd escaped the cellar, but I was still locked up, trapped by fear and self-doubt, and the certainty that good things didn't happen to girls like me. I should apologize, I said, to Edmund, for running. For being human? For being scared? Quillen smiled. I think he'll understand. I found Edmund in the training courtyard behind the castle, working out his frustration on a practice dummy. He'd stripped down to just loose pants, his chest bare and gleaming with sweat. Every muscle defined as he moved with lethal grace. It should have been intimidating. Instead, I found myself staring. He must have sensed me because he stopped mid-strike, turning to face me. Evangeline, I'm sorry. The words rushed out. For running. For everything. Don't apologize for being overwhelmed. He grabbed a towel, wiping sweat from his face. I dumped a lot on you very quickly. The prophecy, the transformation, the pressure of being something you never asked to be, you had every right to need. Space. You're being too understanding. Because I've had 300 years to get comfortable with who I am. He tossed the towel aside, moving closer. You've had one day. I can afford to be patient. I said cruel things about you only wanting me because I'm supposedly special. You said scared things. He stopped just in front of me, and this time when he reached out, I didn't pull away. His hand cupped my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. Evangeline, I'm not going to pretend the prophecy doesn't matter. If you are the Swan Maiden, it changes things. But I chose you before I knew anything about prophecies or legends. I chose you because my wolf recognized its mate. Everything else is secondary. How do you know? I whispered. How do you know I'm really your mate and not just wishful thinking? Instead of answering with words, he took my hand and pressed it against his chest. Beneath my palm, his heart thundered. Feel that? His voice roughened. That's what happens when you're near. My wolf wants to surface just to be closer to you. Every instinct I have screams at me to protect you, claim you, keep you safe. When you ran earlier, it took everything I had not to chase you down, not because I was angry, but because my wolf needed to know you were okay. His free hand joined the first, cradling my face between his palms. That's not wishful thinking, Evangeline. That's the mate bond, real, undeniable, terrifying in its intensity. I felt it too, that pull toward him, the way my body wanted to lean into his touch, the strange comfort I felt in his presence despite barely knowing him. What if I can't be what you need? The question came out small. What if I'm not the Swan Maiden? What if I'm just broken? Then I'll love you anyway. The certainty in his voice made my breath catch. Evangeline, I don't need you to be prophesied or powerful or anything other than yourself. I just need you to give us a chance. I'm trying, I admitted. It's just hard to believe that someone like you could want someone like me for real reasons, and not just because of what I might become. Then let me prove it. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. Let me show you that you're wanted for exactly who you are right now, not who you might become, not some prophecy or legend, just you. He kissed me. It was gentle, questioning, giving me every opportunity to refuse. But I didn't want to refuse. For the first time in my life, I wanted to be wanted. Wanted to believe that maybe I wasn't just surviving anymore. I kissed him back. The response was immediate. He groaned against my mouth, his hands sliding from my face to my hair, angling my head for better access. The kiss deepened, his tongue sliding against mine, and heat flooded through me, sensation I'd never experienced, want I'd never allowed myself to feel. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. His eyes had gone full gold, wolf close to the surface. That, he said roughly, is real. Everything between us, Evangeline. That's real. and for the first time I let myself believe it might be true. Chapter 6. Over the next week, we fell into a rhythm. Mornings in the training courtyard, where Edmund tried to teach me to access whatever power supposedly lived inside me. The sessions were frustrating. I could never summon even a spark. But Edmund remained patient, adjusting his approach each time I failed. Afternoons with Mordain, learning about pack history and politics and everything a future Luna should know. He taught me about the different territories, the pack hierarchy, the delicate balance of power that kept the realm from descending into chaos. Evenings were mine and Edmund's. Sometimes we talked for hours, learning about each other. He told me stories of his long life, the wars he'd fought, the changes he'd witnessed. I told him about my childhood before the cellar, about my father and the books we'd read together. Other times we didn't talk at all. He'd pull me into his arms, and we'd explore this attraction between us, kisses that grew more heated each night, touches that made me gasp, whispered words that made me believe I might actually be wanted. But he never pushed for more, never demanded I accept his mark. Despite the mate bond growing stronger daily, he was letting me set the pace, giving me control I'd never had before. It should have made me feel secure. Instead, it made me paranoid, waiting for the moment when his patience would run out. On the 8th night, I stood at my window, staring out at the moon-drenched gardens, when I saw something that made my blood run cold. Lysandai, moving through the shadows with clear purpose. She met someone at the far wall, a figure whose eyes glowed crimson in the darkness. They spoke briefly, too far for me to hear. Then Lysandai handed over a roll of parchment, sealed with wax. The crimson-eyed figure took it and disappeared into the night. Lysandai stood for a moment, her face illuminated by moonlight. She looked satisfied, triumphant. Then she returned to the castle. I should have told Edmund immediately. Should have run to his room and warned him that his trusted advisor was meeting with mysterious figures in the night. But doubt held me frozen. What if I was wrong? What if it was innocent? What if I went to Edmund with accusations I couldn't prove and he realized I was just paranoid, damaged, not worth the trouble? What if he chose Lysandai over me? So I said nothing. And that choice, that moment of doubt and fear, would cost more than I could have imagined. Because 3 days later, Edmund had to leave. Border Patrol found signs of rogue activity, he explained, strapping weapons to his belt as he prepared to ride out. I need to assess the situation personally. How long will you be gone? A day, maybe 2. I'll be back before you know it. He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead. You'll be safe here. The castle defenses are the strongest in the realm, and I'm leaving Quillen with you. I'll be fine. I forced a smile. Go, do what you need to, do. He kissed me properly then, deep and thorough, leaving me breathless. When I get back, we need to talk about the next step, about completing the mate bond. My heart jumped. Edmund, I'm not pushing. I'm just saying, I think you're ready. I think we're ready. His thumb traced my lips. Think about it while I'm gone. Then he left, riding out with a group of elite guards, and I was alone in the castle with my doubts and fears. And Lysandai. It happened on the 2nd night. I was in my chambers, trying to read but unable to concentrate. Edmund should have been back by now. The fact that he wasn't made my skin prickle with unease. A knock on my door. Quillen, looking worried. Something's wrong, he said without preamble. The servants are acting strange, avoiding eye contact, moving like they're afraid. Afraid of what? I don't know, but... The door burst open. Lysandai stood there, and behind her were guards I didn't recognize. Their eyes glowed faintly, red, crimson, like the figure in the garden. Quillen immediately moved between us. "What's the meaning of this?" "I'm sorry, little Swan," Lysandre said, not sounding sorry at all. "But you're coming with me." Quillen launched himself at the nearest guard, fighting with desperate courage. But they overwhelmed him quickly, their movements too strong, too coordinated. I backed away, looking for anything I could use as a weapon. My power. I needed to access my power like Edmund had been teaching me. I reached inside, searching for that spark Mordain said should be there. Nothing. The guards closed in. One produced a vial of dark liquid, forcing it between my lips before I could fight. The taste was bitter, chemical, wrong. My legs gave out almost immediately. My vision blurred, sounds becoming distant. I saw Quillen's face, bloody but defiant, as they beat him down. I saw Lysandre's cold smile. And then I saw nothing at all. Chapter 7. I woke to the smell of blood and smoke. My head pounded viciously, and my mouth tasted like copper. I tried to move and discovered my wrists were bound with something that burned against my skin. Iron mixed with something else. Something that made whatever power supposedly lived inside me recoil inward. I was in a tent made of dark fabric that seemed to absorb light. Through gaps I could see a war camp, dozens of wolves moving with that same too-stiff gait as Lysandre's guards, all bearing crimson eyes. A man entered the tent, and I knew immediately this was the figure from the garden. He was handsome in a sharp, dangerous way. All angles, with black hair and those unnatural crimson eyes. Power radiated from him, but it felt wrong, rotten, like something beautiful that had been corrupted. "The Swan Maiden awakens," he said, his voice silk over poison. "I've waited decades to meet you, Evangeline." "Who are you?" "Zareth Bloodthorn." He circled me slowly, like a predator assessing prey. Perhaps Edmund mentioned me? No? How typical. He likes to pretend his mistakes don't exist. The name tugged at memory, something Mordain had mentioned during one of our lessons. "You were banished." 50 years ago, yes, for practicing dark magic, they said, for trying to evolve beyond our limited wolf forms. His crimson eyes blazed. Edmund and his council feared what I could become. So they cast me out into the Shadowlands and tried to forget I existed. "What do you want with me?" "The same thing Edmund wants, your power." He crouched in front of me, tilting his head. "The prophecy speaks of the Swan Maiden's ability to reshape the realm. Combined with my magic, we could be unstoppable. Every pack would kneel or burn. I'll never help you. You will, one way or another." He stood, pacing. The mate bond transformation can happen through willing acceptance or through force. Willing is better, cleaner, more stable. But I'm not above taking what I need if you refuse. Terror locked my throat. "Edmund will kill you." "Edmund is exactly where I need him, chasing false reports at the border while I take what's mine. By the time he realizes what's happened, you'll be bonded to me, and your power will be under my control." He left, and I was alone with guards who barely seemed human anymore. Whatever Zareth had done to them, it had stolen something essential. Time passed in a haze of fear and pain. The iron burned constantly, and the tent was stifling. I tried to reach my power, tried to do anything Edmund had taught me, but it was like grasping smoke. At some point, hours or days later, I couldn't tell, Zareth returned. And he wasn't alone. He dragged Quillen into the tent and threw him to the ground. My friend was barely recognizable, beaten, bloodied, but somehow still breathing. "No," I whispered. "No, please." "Your friend has been remarkably brave," Zareth said conversationally, pulling a knife from his belt. The blade was black metal that seemed to drink light. "Very loyal," He's refused to tell me anything useful about the castle's defenses despite our persuasive methods. Leave him alone. My voice broke. Please, I'll do anything. Anything. Zareth pressed the knife to Quillen's throat. Then here's the deal, little Swan. Accept my mark willingly, and I'll let your friend live. Refuse, and I'll kill him slowly while you watch. Then I'll force the mark anyway. Quillen met my eyes, and despite everything, his gaze was fierce. Don't do it, Evangeline. Don't let him win. Whatever happens to me. Shut up. Zareth pressed the blade harder, drawing blood. My mind raced desperately. If I accepted Zareth's mark, I'd be bound to him forever. My power would become his tool. But if I refused, Quillen would die, and Zareth would force it anyway. Either way, I lost. Unless... I thought about the training sessions with Edmund, about how passion had once triggered a weak pulse of light, about how emotion was supposedly the key to accessing my power. And I thought about the mate bond, that connection Edmund said existed between us. Could I reach him through it? Could I call for help without words? It was a desperate hope, probably futile, but it was all I had. I closed my eyes and focused everything I had on that bond, on the warmth in my chest when Edmund was near, on the certainty that had been growing despite my fears, on the feeling of being wanted and chosen and valued for the first time in my life. Edmund, please, I need you so much. Time's up, Zareth said. What's your answer? I opened my eyes and looked directly at him. Despite the fear, despite the hopelessness, I found my voice. My answer is no. I belong to Edmund Nightbane, my mate, my Alpha King, and you will never have me. Zareth's face twisted with rage. The knife pressed harder against Quillen's throat. And then the entire camp exploded into chaos. A massive black wolf burst through the tent, wall, all fury and devastating power. Edmund's wolf was enormous, easily twice the size of a normal alpha, with eyes blazing pure gold and a growl that made the ground tremble. He'd heard me. Through the bond, across miles, he'd heard my call, and he'd come. Zareth stumbled backward, and Quillen rolled away from the blade. More wolves poured into the camp, Edmund's elite guard, fighting with deadly precision. Edmund shifted mid-stride, becoming human between one step and the next. He wore only torn pants, his chest bare and streaked with blood that wasn't his. His eyes found mine, and the relief that flooded through the mate bond nearly broke me. Get her free, he commanded, never taking his eyes off Zareth. 2 guards rushed to me, carefully removing the burning iron restraints. The moment they fell away, I felt it. Power surging up from somewhere deep inside, no longer blocked by the cursed metal. Touching, Zareth said, recovering his composure. Dark energy crackled around his fingers. The Alpha King rides to rescue his precious mate. How predictable. He raised his hands and I felt the wrongness of his magic. But you're too late, Edmund. She called to you through the mate bond, which proves exactly what she is. That kind of power. He smiled. I'm going to enjoy taking it from her corpse if I can't have it any other way. He struck with magic born from blood and corruption. The dark energy lanced toward me, and I knew with terrible certainty that I couldn't dodge it. Edmund moved faster than should have been possible, putting himself between me and the attack. The dark magic hit him square in the chest. Blood exploded from the wound, too much blood. Edmund went down, and through the bond I felt his pain like it was my own. No! The scream tore from my throat, and with it came something I'd been suppressing my entire life. Power, not the weak sparks from training, not controlled or gentle or safe. This was raw, primal, absolute, the accumulated, force of 22 years of pain and fear and rage finally set free. Silver light erupted from my body, so brilliant that wolves had to shield their eyes. The iron bindings shattered completely. The tent disintegrated. And I rose. Not physically at first, just power lifting me, surrounding me, transforming me into something more than human, more than wolf. Wings of pure light unfurled from my back, not physical, but real nonetheless. Silver radiance poured from my skin like I was a star given form. I was the Swan maiden, and I was done being afraid. The transformation should have hurt. Mordain had warned it might kill me, but all I felt was rightness. Like I'd been walking around with only half of myself my entire life, and now I was finally whole. Through the light, I could sense every corrupted wolf in Zareth's camp, could feel the dark magic eating at their souls, stealing their humanity, could feel Edmund bleeding out from a wound that should have killed him instantly. You wanted my power? My voice echoed with something beyond mortal. You can have it. I descended, landing directly in front of Zareth. The ground beneath my feet glowed with silver light. He tried to attack again, dark magic lashing out desperately. But my light burned it away before it could reach me. Please, he gasped as I placed my hand over his heart. Please, I didn't mean... You did. You meant every word. The power flowed through me with perfect clarity. But I'm not like you, Zareth. I don't enjoy causing pain. The purification was absolute. I poured light into him, burning away decades of accumulated darkness. His crimson eyes faded to normal brown. The wrong power that had sustained him simply dissolved. When I released him, he collapsed, powerless, human, no longer the terrifying rogue alpha, but just a broken man who'd made terrible choices. You're alive, I said quietly, but you'll never hurt anyone again. Then I turned to the corrupted wolves. One by one, I touched them, freeing them from the dark magic that had enslaved them. Most collapsed in relief, tears streaming down their faces as they regained their true selves. Finally, I knelt beside Edmund. The dark magic was still writhing in his wound, trying to burrow toward his heart. Through the bond, I felt his life slipping away. No, I whispered, placing both hands over the injury. You don't get to die. Not for me. Not like this. I poured everything I had into healing him. All the power, all the light, all the love I'd been too afraid to admit I felt. The dark magic fought back, trying to corrupt me instead. But I was stronger. The light burned away corruption like dawn banishing night. The wound closed beneath my hands. Color returned to Edmund's face. His eyes opened, pure gold, focused on me with devastating intensity. Evangeline, he breathed, and then the power ran out. I collapsed across his chest, completely drained, the wings of light fading as consciousness slipped away. The last thing I felt was his arms wrapping around me, holding me safe. The last thing I heard was his voice, rough with emotion. I've got you. You're safe. My beautiful, brave Swan. I've got you. Then darkness claimed me. And I knew nothing more. Chapter 8. 3 days later, I woke slowly, awareness returning in pieces. Soft sheets, the scent of pine and thunderstorms, warmth beside me. Edmund. I opened my eyes to find him sitting on the edge of the bed, his hand clasping mine. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, his hair disheveled, but whole. Alive. The wound that should have killed him was gone. You're awake. The relief in his voice was palpable. Through the bond, which felt stronger now, clearer, I felt his emotions flood through. Joy, relief. love so intense it made my chest ache. How long? My voice came out rough. 3 days. The healers said your body needed time to recover from the power expenditure. His thumb traced circles on my palm. You saved everyone, Evangeline. The corrupted wolves, the guards, me. You saved us all. Memory came crashing back. The kidnapping, Zareth, the transformation. The moment when I'd finally accessed my power, not through careful training, but through desperate need. Quillen is alive, battered, but alive. He's been standing guard outside the door since we brought you back, refusing to leave. Edmund smiled softly. You have loyal friends. I tried to sit up, and he immediately moved to help me, propping pillows behind my back. Through the windows I could see daylight. Afternoon, judging by the angle of the sun. I transformed, I said quietly. Became the Swan Maiden. Had wings made of light. You were magnificent. His hand cupped my face gently. Terrifying and beautiful and more powerful than anything I've ever witnessed. You were everything the prophecy promised and more. Are you afraid of me now? Afraid of you. He laughed, the sound incredulous. Evangeline, I'm in awe of you. You accessed power that's been dormant for 1,000 years. You defeated a rogue alpha who'd spent decades perfecting dark magic. You healed a wound that should have been fatal. His forehead pressed against mine. And you did it all to save people, to protect rather than destroy. I felt you dying. My voice broke. Through the bond, I felt your life slipping away, and I couldn't lose you. Not when I'd just started to believe that maybe I could have this. Have you. You have me. His thumb wiped away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. You've had me since the moment I walked into that ceremony hall. And nothing, not prophecies or transformations or near-death experiences, is going to change that. What happened after I passed out? We secured Zareth and what remained of his followers. The corrupted wolves you freed have pledged loyalty to us. They're grateful beyond words. Lysande. His expression hardened. She tried to fight her way out when we returned. She didn't survive. I should have felt something about that. Guilt, maybe, or sorrow. But Lysande had made her choices. Had betrayed everything for power she'd never earn. I should have told you, I admitted. I saw her meeting with someone in the gardens, saw the crimson eyes, but I was afraid. Afraid that if I accused your trusted advisor without proof, you'd think I was just paranoid, jealous, not worth the trouble. Evangeline. He lifted my chin, making me meet his eyes. You're worth everything, and I should have noticed Lysande's treachery myself. I'd worked with her for decades. I should have seen the signs. We both made mistakes. Then we'll learn from them. Together. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. The council wants to meet with you officially. There will be ceremonies, politics, probably some challenges from alphas who think they need to test whether you're worthy. I'm not ready for that. Then we'll wait until you are. Simple. Certain. Evangeline, I'm not going to rush you into anything. We'll take this at whatever pace you need. I looked at him, really looked, at the dark circles under his eyes that said he hadn't slept in days, at the way he held my hand like he was afraid I'd disappear if he let go, at the love and faith and patience written across every feature. He'd chosen me when I was nothing, had seen value where everyone else saw worthlessness, had been willing to die for me before I'd even accepted what we could be. And I'd been so focused on my fear, on waiting for him to reject me, that I hadn't let myself really feel what was growing between us. Edmund. I squeezed his hand. I need to tell you something. You can tell me anything. When Zareth had that knife to Quillen's throat, when he offered me the choice between accepting his mark or watching my friend die, I took a deep breath. I wasn't thinking about prophecies or power or politics. I was thinking about you, about how you make me feel wanted, valued, like I matter not because of what I might become, but because of who I am right now. His eyes had gone wolf gold, but he didn't interrupt. I reached for you through the bond because you're mine, I continued, the words coming easier now. And I'm yours, not because of fate or prophecy or true mate destiny, but because I choose you. Because when you look at me, I see myself the way you see me. Beautiful, brave, worthy. And I want to be that person. I want to be your mate. Really, truly your mate. Evangeline, I'm not finished. I touched his lips gently. I'm still scared. I'm still figuring out who I am and what I'm capable of. But I don't want to do it alone anymore. I don't want to keep waiting for you to reject me, constantly afraid that I'm not enough. I met his eyes fully. So I'm asking you, will you mark me? Will you complete the mate bond and make this permanent? For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then he moved, carefully, like I was something precious, gathering me into his arms and holding me so tight I could barely breathe. I've been waiting to hear those words, he said roughly against my hair. Trying to be patient, trying not to push, but wanting so badly to make you permanently mine. Then do it. I pulled back just enough to see his face. Mark me, make me yours. Show me I'm not going to wake up and find this was all a dream. His eyes blazed. Are you certain? The transformation, we don't know what will happen when Swan and Wolf merge. I trust you. And I meant it. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. He kissed me then, deep and hungry and full of 3 days' worth of fear and relief. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. Now? He asked. You just woke up. You're still recovering. Now! I pulled him closer. I don't want to wait anymore. I've spent my whole life waiting. To shift, to be accepted, to be enough. I'm done waiting, Edmund. I want this. I want you. He cupped my face in both hands, his expression intense. Then you'll have me. All of me. Forever. Chapter 9. He was careful with me despite the hunger I could feel through the bond. Gentle as he laid me back against the pillows, his hands mapping my body like he was memorizing every inch. You're so beautiful, he murmured against my throat. Every time I look at you, I can't believe you're real, that you're mine. Not yours yet, I breathed. Not until you mark me. His growl rumbled through his chest into mine. Soon. But first, I'm going to make sure you understand exactly what you mean to me. What followed was slow and thorough. His hands and mouth learning every place that made me gasp, every touch that made me arch into him. He took his time despite the desire flooding through the bond, determined to make this perfect. When clothes finally came off, when skin touched skin for the first time, the sensation was overwhelming. I could feel his want through the bond, could sense how hard he was fighting to maintain control. I'm not going to break, I told him, pulling him closer. I know. His lips found mine again. But you deserve to be cherished, worshipped, loved properly. And he did. He loved me with his hands and mouth until I was shaking, until the power began to stir inside me, not from fear this time, but from passion, from joy, from the overwhelming rightness of this moment. When he finally positioned himself above me, his eyes were pure gold, Wolf barely contained. Last chance, he said, his voice strained. Once I mark you, we're bound forever. Our souls, our lives, intertwined for as long as we exist. Promise. I reached up, cupping his face. Promise me forever, Edmund. Forever, he swore, and every day after that. He kissed me as he entered me, gentle despite the hunger, careful despite the need. There was pain, brief and sharp, but it faded almost immediately into sensation that made rational thought impossible. We moved together, finding a rhythm as old as time. The bond pulsed between us, growing stronger with each moment. Through it, I felt everything he felt, the overwhelming pleasure, the fierce possessiveness, the love so deep it had no words. "Now," I gasped against his mouth. "Mark me now." His fangs scraped my neck where it met my shoulder, right over the pulse point. "I love you, Evangeline, my swan, my mate, my everything." Then his fangs sank into my flesh. The pain was sharp and immediate, but it lasted only a heartbeat before being eclipsed by something else entirely. The mate bond exploded into full existence. Silver light erupted from my body, bright enough that Edmund had to close his eyes. But he didn't stop, didn't pull away. He held me through the transformation, his mark burning into my skin, our souls recognizing and merging. I felt him. Not just physically, not just through touch. I felt his emotions, his thoughts, his very essence flooding into me through the bond. 300 years of loneliness, of ruling alone, of wondering if he'd ever find his mate. The moment he'd scented me in that hall, how his wolf had gone wild. Every fear he'd hidden, every moment of patience that had cost him, every second of worry while I'd been unconscious. And the love. Gods, the love. So vast and deep and permanent that it made tears stream down my face. He felt me too. I sensed it through the bond. My pain, my fears, my lifetime of believing I was worthless. The courage it had taken to attend that ceremony. Every moment of doubt. Every time I'd been afraid he'd reject me. And now, finally, the certainty. The acceptance. The love that matched his own. The wings manifested again, pure silver light unfurling from my back. But this time, they weren't alone. Golden wolf fire danced along the edges, Edmund's power merging with mine. Swan and wolf, light and shadow, two halves of one whole. We moved together through the transformation, our bodies still joined, pleasure building beyond anything I'd thought possible. When we finally reached the peak together, the power that exploded through the room shook the castle's foundations. Silver and gold light spiraled upward, creating patterns on the ceiling like northern lights. The bond sang between us, permanent and unbreakable. We collapsed together, tangled in sheets that smelled like both of us now. My wings faded slowly, leaving only the warm glow of completed magic. Edmund pulled me against his chest, his mark on my neck still burning pleasantly. "Are you okay?" "Better than okay." I traced the line of his jaw. "I can feel you. Through the bond. Feel everything you're feeling." "Then you know exactly how much I love you." He pressed a kiss to his mark, making me shiver. "My beautiful swan. You survived the transformation. Merged swan and wolf without losing yourself." "Because I had you." I snuggled closer, exhaustion pulling at me. "We did it together. Always together from now on." His arm tightened around my waist. "Sleep, love. I'll be here when you wake." I let my eyes close, feeling safe and wanted and loved for the first time in my life. The girl who'd been locked in a cellar, called cursed and worthless, had become the Swan Maiden, had become a Luna, had become loved. Chapter 10. I woke to voices arguing outside the bedroom door. Edmund still held me, but he was awake, his jaw tight with annoyance. "What? The council," he growled. "They arrived this morning demanding to see you. I've been putting them off for hours." Through the windows, I saw the sun was setting. We'd spent the entire day in bed. Heat flooded my face. The whole castle probably heard, "Good." He nipped at my ear, making me squeak. "Let them all know you're mine." A loud knock made us both jump. "Your Majesty," a voice called, one of the guards. "The council is growing. Insistent. They say if the Swan Maiden has truly awakened, they need to verify." "Tell them to wait," Edmund snapped. "I should probably see them," I said reluctantly. "Get it over with." "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for." "I know." I kissed him softly. "But they're right. If I'm going to be Luna, if I'm going to help you rule, I need to face them eventually. Might as well start, now." He helped me dress in clothing the servants had left. A gown of silver and white that somehow fit perfectly. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My silver-streaked hair seemed to glow faintly in certain light. My eyes had settled into a luminous gray-white that shifted depending on the angle. And Edmund's mark stood out clearly on my neck, a claiming visible to everyone. I looked like a Luna. I looked like I belonged here. The council chamber was intimidating. 12 wolves representing the major packs and territories, all of them watching me with varying degrees of skepticism, curiosity, and in some cases, outright hostility. Edmund took his seat, and I sat beside him. Not behind, not in shadow. Equal. "Honored Council," Edmund began, his voice carrying effortless authority. "I present my mate, Evangeline Moonwhisper Duskbane, your Luna and the prophesied Swan Maiden." An older wolf stood. Alpha Krevlin of the Northern Territories. His scarred face and gray hair speaking of decades of survival. "With respect, Your Majesty, prophecy is easy to claim. How do we know she's truly the Swan Maiden? That she possesses the power the legends speak of?" Before Edmund could respond, and I felt his anger building through the bond, I stood. "You doubt me," I said calmly. "That's reasonable. I would doubt me too." I let my power rise, just enough that silver light began to shimmer across my skin. "But I can show you." "Evangeline," Edmund warned through the bond, "you're still recovering." "I'm fine," I sent back. "Trust me." Aloud, I said, "The legends say the Swan Maiden's touch will make the moonstone shine brighter than it has in 1,000 years. Is the stone still kept here?" Mordain stepped forward, his old face creased with approval. He gestured to a pedestal at the chamber's center, where a large crystal rested. The moonstone, ancient and sacred. I walked to it, aware of every eye tracking my movement. This was it. The moment where I either proved myself or failed spectacularly in front of everyone who mattered. I placed my hand on the cool crystal surface. Power flooded through me, up from my core, through my arm, into the stone. The moonstone erupted with silver light so brilliant that several council members had to shield their eyes. The light filled the chamber, reflecting off walls, creating patterns that looked like wings. Through the power, I could sense the stone's history. Every Luna who'd touched it, every ceremony it had witnessed. 1,000 years of accumulated magic responding to my touch. When I removed my hand, the glow faded slowly, leaving the stone pulsing with soft luminescence. "The prophecy is real," I said into the awed silence. "I am the Swan Maiden, and I'm asking you to accept me not just as your Alpha King's mate, but as your Luna." Another wolf stood, younger, ambitious-looking, Alpha Rathon of the Eastern Reaches. "The Swan Maiden may be prophesied, but prophecy also speaks of destruction. How do we know you won't bring ruin rather than salvation?" "You don't," I admitted. "I don't even know that myself, but I can tell you this. I didn't choose this power. Didn't ask to be prophesied or special. But I've accepted what I am, and I will use everything I have to protect this realm and its people." "Pretty words." Rathon's tone dripped condescension. "But words mean nothing. How do we know you have the strength to rule? The political acumen? You were raised in a cellar, not a court. Then test me. I met his gaze steadily. Give me a challenge. Prove to yourself whether I'm worthy. Murmurs rippled through the council. Krevlin stood again, his expression thoughtful. The southern marshes have been corrupted for years. Dark magic from Zareth's experiments poisoned the land, made it uninhabitable. Dozens of packs were displaced, their territory lost. He studied me carefully. If you could purify that land, restore it to what it was, it would prove your power has practical application, and it would give refugees a place to return home. It was a fair challenge, difficult enough to test me, but with real stakes that would help people if I succeeded. Through the bond, I felt Edmund's concern. That level of purification could kill you. You're still recovering. I'm fine, I insisted. And isn't this why I exist? To heal what's been corrupted? I turned to Krevlin. I accept your challenge. When do we leave? Chapter 11. The southern marshes were 3 days' ride from the castle. We traveled with half the council. They wanted to witness this personally. And a full guard. Quillen rode beside me. Fully healed now, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. Edmund stayed close to me as we rode, his protectiveness radiating through the bond. You don't have to do this, he said for the 10th time. Yes, I do. I squeezed his hand. If I'm going to be Luna, I need to show them I'm more than just prophecy and power. I need to show them I can use what I am to help people. The marshes announced themselves miles before we reached them. The smell hit first, rot and decay, and something chemically wrong. Then the landscape changed. Green gave way to gray, vibrant life to skeletal death. The corrupted zone itself was worse than I'd imagined. Trees stood like blackened bones, their bark diseased and weeping. The water was thick and dark, moving sluggishly. Even the air felt wrong, heavy with taint. This used to be fertile land, Krevlin said quietly beside me. Home to 3 packs, now it's a wasteland. I dismounted, walking to the edge of the corruption. Up close, it was even worse. I could feel Zareth's dark magic sunk deep into the earth itself, poisoning everything it touched. This was going to take everything I had. Everyone stay back, I said. I don't know how far the light will spread. Edmund caught my hand before I could move forward. Be careful. If it's too much, stop. The marshes aren't worth your life. The people who lost their homes would disagree. I kissed him quickly. I'll be fine. You gave me your strength through the bond, remember? I'm not doing this alone. I knelt at the corruption's edge and pressed my hands into the poisoned earth. The purification was massive, complex, overwhelming. I had to find every thread of dark magic, every poisoned root, every corrupted water source, and burn it away with light. I lost track of time. There was only the work, pushing light here, burning away corruption there, restoring what had been destroyed. Through the bond, I felt Edmund supporting me, his strength flowing into mine when I faltered. Hours or days later, I couldn't tell. I felt the last tendril of corruption dissolve. The work was done. I released the power and opened my eyes. The marshes were transformed. Green had returned, vibrant and alive. Clear water flowed where black sludge had festered. Trees bore new leaves, and birds sang in branches. The wasteland had become fertile again. I tried to stand and discovered my legs wouldn't support me. Edmund caught me before I could fall, pulling me against his chest. You did it, he murmured against my hair. You actually did it. Through my exhaustion, I managed a smile. Did you doubt me? Never. The council stood in stunned silence. Then Krevlin approached, and to my shock, he knelt. You've given hundreds of wolves their home back, Luna. More than that, you've proven you. Use your power to heal rather than destroy. One by one, the other council members knelt as well, even Rathon, though he looked pained. The council recognizes Evangeline Moonwhisper Duskbane as our true Luna and the prophesied Swan Maiden. We pledge our loyalty and support. Through my exhaustion, I felt triumph. Not just for passing the test, but for doing something that mattered, for using my power to help rather than harm. Edmund carried me back to camp, refusing to let me walk. That night, as I recovered in our tent, he held me close. I was terrified watching you, he admitted, feeling your strength drain through the bond, knowing how much that purification was costing you. But you trusted me to know my limits. I'll always trust you. He pressed a kiss to his mark. But that doesn't mean I have to like watching you push yourself to the edge. Get used to it. I snuggled closer. Something tells me this is just the beginning. I was right, though not in the way I expected. Chapter 12. We returned to the castle to find Mordain waiting with news that made my blood run cold. There's been another incident, he said without preamble. 3 packs on the eastern border, completely destroyed. No survivors. Just ash and symbols burned into the earth. He spread parchment across the table, sketches of marks that made my power react violently. Summoning symbols, I said slowly, recognition flooding through me. But summoning what? The prophecy doesn't just speak of the Swan Maiden, Mordain said grimly. It speaks of her opposite, the Shadow Wolf, a creature of pure darkness that exists to balance the light. Some legends say it's a separate being. Others claim it's part of the Swan Maiden herself, her dark reflection. You think someone's trying to summon this thing? Edmund demanded. The destruction of 3 packs would provide immense death energy, enough to fuel a summoning of that magnitude. Mordain's expression was grave. If the Shadow Wolf is called forth and not bound to the Swan Maiden's will, it will destroy everything. How do we stop it? I asked. We don't, Mordain said quietly. Only you can. The prophecy says the Swan Maiden must either bind the Shadow Wolf to her service or be destroyed by it. There's no middle ground. 3 nights later, during what was supposed to be my official coronation as Luna, the castle shook. Darkness exploded through the windows, not natural night, but something alive and hungry. It coalesced in the center of the great hall, taking form. The Shadow Wolf stood 12 feet tall, its body made of living darkness. Its eyes burned crimson, and when it spoke, its voice was death itself. The light has risen, the shadow must answer. Every wolf in the hall shifted or prepared to fight. But I knew with terrible certainty that physical attacks wouldn't work against this creature. This was the choice Mordain had warned about. The moment the prophecy had been building toward. Through the bond. I felt Edmund's readiness to fight. Evangeline, get behind me. No. I stepped forward, positioning myself between the Shadow Wolf and everyone else. This is mine to face. The creature tilted its massive head, studying me. The Swan Maiden. At last we meet. What do you want? The same thing you want. Purpose. Balance. The light cannot exist without shadow. Creation requires destruction. You've awakened your power, Swan Maiden, but power without balance is chaos. So you're here to destroy everything I've built? I'm here to be what you need me to be. The crimson eyes burned into mine. Accept me as your opposite, your balance, and together we maintain the equilibrium this realm requires. Reject me, and I destroy everything until you have no choice but to accept. To emphasize its point, the Shadow Wolf turned toward Edmund. Dark energy gathered in its maw. Stop! Power exploded from me instinctively, silver light meeting living darkness, the collision sent, shockwaves through the hall. We were evenly matched, my light and its shadow, creation and destruction, locked in eternal opposition. But fighting wasn't the answer. Through the power, I could feel it. This creature wasn't evil. It was necessary. The universe demanded balance, and I couldn't be all light without shadow to balance it. "I'll accept you," I said, still holding it back with my light. "But not as destroyer, as protector. We balance each other, yes. But we also protect this realm together. Those are my terms." The shadow wolf studied me for a long moment. Then slowly, deliberately, it began to shrink. The living darkness condensed, taking a form that was still massive and intimidating, but no longer overwhelming. "Very well, Swan Maiden, light and shadow bound together. Where you go, I follow. What you protect, I defend." It moved closer, and I felt rather than saw it merge with my power, not consuming, but joining. We are one now. Two sides of the same coin. The shadow melted into me, and I gasped as new power flooded my senses. Not just light anymore, but darkness too. Not just creation, but the ability to destroy what needed destroying. Balance. When the sensation faded, I stood in the center of the hall. Silver light and dark shadow both dancing across my skin. Edmund was at my side immediately, his hands on my face. "Are you okay?" I searched for words. "I'm more than okay. I'm complete." Through the bond, I showed him what I felt. Not corrupted by darkness, but balanced. Whole in a way I'd never been before. Mordain approached, awe written across his old face. "You did what no Swan Maiden before you managed. You bound the Shadow Wolf to your will without losing yourself. Light and darkness, working together instead of destroying each other." "Does this mean the danger is past?" Quillen asked, looking around nervously. "This danger, yes." I looked at Edmund, at the council, at the assembled wolves who were all staring at me, like I was something beyond mortal. "But there's still the question of who tried to summon the Shadow Wolf in the first place. Who destroyed those 3 packs?" "A question for tomorrow," Edmund said firmly. He turned to the assembled crowd. "Tonight we complete what we started, the coronation of our Luna." The ceremony continued, though it was subdued after the Shadow Wolf's dramatic entrance. When the crown of moonstone and starlight was placed on my head, when I spoke the ancient vows binding me to the realm, I felt the weight of it. Not just Luna to Edmund, not just the Swan Maiden of prophecy, but something more. A force of balance, of change, of transformation. The girl they'd called cursed had become the most powerful being in the realm. And I was just beginning to understand what that meant. Chapter 13. Later, in our private chambers, Edmund pulled me into his arms. "Do you have any idea how terrifying it was watching that thing threaten you?" He buried his face in my neck, right over his mark. "Every instinct I have was screaming to protect you, but I knew this was something you had to face alone." I wasn't alone. I turned in his arms, cupping his face. "I had you. Through the bond, I felt your strength supporting me, your faith that I could handle it. I always have faith in you." He kissed me softly. "My beautiful Swan. You've survived being cursed, kidnapped, transformed, tested by the council, and binding the Shadow Wolf to your will, all in less than a month. What's next?" "Honestly?" I laughed. "I'd like to just be your mate for a while. No prophecies, no tests. No dramatic confrontations, just us." "That sounds perfect." We stood on the balcony overlooking the realm, his arms wrapped around me from behind, my wings, which I'd learned to summon at will, folded around us both like a silver cocoon. "They called me the ugly duckling," I said softly. cursed and broken and worthless. And I called you my beautiful Swan. His lips found the sensitive spot behind my ear. And I was right. You were. I leaned back against him, feeling safe and loved and powerful in ways I'd never imagined. Thank you for choosing me, Edmund, for seeing something in me when everyone else saw nothing. I didn't give you value, love. I just recognized what was already there. He turned me to face him, his eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. You saved yourself, Evangeline. You took the risk, made the choices, found the courage. I just got to be there to watch you transform. He kissed me then, deep and thorough and full of promise. Through the bond, I felt his love, his pride, his absolute certainty that we belonged together. We'd face whatever came next together. Light and shadow. Swan and wolf. Two souls that had been alone for too long and had finally found home. But that night, standing in his arms with the moon bright overhead and our realm at peace, I let myself simply be happy. The ugly duckling had become a swan. The cursed girl had become a queen. The broken one had become whole. And it had all started because one powerful alpha had looked past what everyone else saw and called me beautiful. Sometimes, that's all it takes to change a life. Someone who sees you, really sees you, and chooses you anyway. I'd been chosen, and I chose him right back. Forever. The end. You just witnessed Evangeline go from cellar prisoner to the most powerful being in the realm. Talk about a glow up. If this story gave you all the feels, join our community of romance lovers by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. We're building something special here, and I want you to be part of it. Comment your favorite quote from the story, and let's celebrate strong heroines together. Next story drops soon. Don't miss it. Don't.